Hey guys, it's Double Krown here, and today I wanted to talk about free thinking. Free thinking, you might have heard that term. It's being used a lot in the this new age, these new age videos that you see, and they use that term free thinking quite a lot. So, what does free thinking mean? What is free thinking? Well, let's look at what free thinking isn't. So, for example, what free thinking isn't. So, if we were to, if we talk about the media, the mainstream media, now that's a good example of what free thinking isn't. Because when you look at mainstream media, you're getting fed something that's prescribed. It's prescribed by people in positions of authority and positions of power, and they've prescribed this for you. The mainstream notions and the mainstream opinions. That is not free thinking. Free thinking is the exact opposite of that. That means if you want to be a free thinker, you need to get away from the mainstream viewpoints and the mainstream way of thinking. So, for example, when somebody asks you, what's your favorite football team? Now that question, what's your favorite football team? That is an example of somebody, the person who's asking the question is not a free thinker, or if they are a free thinker, they don't want you to be a free thinker, because as soon as they ask you what your favorite football team is, there's an awful lot of presumptions there. One presumption is that you know what football is, so you know that's an automatic perception. They perceive that you know what football is, and they want to know what your favorite team is. Secondly, even if you know what football is, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have a team. But this guy who's asking you the question thinks you should have a team. Thirdly, even if you do have a team, and even if you do know what football is, and you do have a team, it doesn't mean that you're necessarily going to be interested in that team very much. And of course, once they've asked you that question, he will expect you to know their last result, perhaps, their last game, how many times you've gone to see them play. So there's an awful lot of perceptions in that one question there. And that's not free thinking. That's trying to tie you down. That ties you down to one, this preconceived notion that everybody likes football. Two, this preconceived notion that everybody has a team. Three, this preconceived notion that you're going to keep on track on knowing the results of the team week in, week out. And he's basically filled up your Saturday afternoons for you, because he'll be expecting you to watch the football, and of course you've probably got something much better to do instead. So that's an example of a question that's not free thinking. Another question that's not free thinking is a question like, what religion are you? So if somebody asks you, what religion are you? That's not free thinking, because as soon as you say a religion, you're tied in to that belief system. So, for example, if you say you're a Christian, you know, they can start asking you questions like, well, how many times have you been to church? You know, they can ask you, do you give a percentage of your income to the church? They can ask you, what do you get involved with outside of church to show that you're a Christian? Do you do any evangelical work, etc.? So it ties you down to a belief system. And then once they've tied you down to a belief system, they basically starting to get control. So, for example, if you were to join a church, that can happen inside the church as well, very much so. So, for example, you go along one Sunday to a church, and before you know it, they're asking you to get involved. So you start getting involved in Bible study. You then start getting involved with things like charity work. You might get involved with evangelism. Before you know it, you might be up there helping the preacher give a sermon. They might ask you to play guitar and sing along with one of the hymns. So one of the key things, of course, is they might start asking you to give a percentage of your income. Again, that's like a control mechanism. So this is not free thinking. This is people trying to tie you down into a belief system, into a structure of belief, etc., which takes you away from free thinking. Now, what's happening online? I see a lot of things happening online which demonstrate a lack of free thinking. And one of the biggest movements online is, which seems all very good on the face of it, is probably the vegan movement. Now, veganism, I've got nothing against vegans. You know, I think it's a very admirable thing they do. If you don't want to eat meat, if you don't want to eat dairy products, if you don't want to eat fish, if you don't want to eat eggs, blah blah blah, etc., etc. That's up to you. That's an individual choice. But the whole vegan movement is trying to encourage people to become a vegan. One of the strategies they use is that it's unsustainable. You know, that the planet can't go on sustaining people eating meat. And of course, that means that ties you into a certain kind of lifestyle. If you were to adopt veganism, it would tie you into a certain kind of lifestyle. And even though you may agree, well, I mean, I think we, you know, a lot of us would agree that unnecessary cruelty to animals is not a good thing. But, you know, it's one thing to believe that. It's another thing to step into veganism, because veganism is, it's a way of life. Veganism doesn't necessarily mean that you're necessarily looking after the animals. People who are meat eaters, you know, we have a system, a humane system. It's called farming, which is a relatively humane system. I'm sure there's lots of bad things going on as well, but essentially it's one of the best systems that we've come up with, which allows people to eat meat without being unnecessarily cruel to animals and being, you know, as efficient as possible. So veganism, again, is really not a free thinking movement. Wherever people try to tie you down and put you into a little box, that is the opposite of free thinking. And there's lots of other stuff as well on the internet. For example, now there's the whole flat Earth business. Now, do you believe the Earth is round, or do you believe the Earth is flat? Now, let's say you were to go along with these internet YouTubers who are saying that the world is flat. Let's say you were to go along with that, and let's play the game, and let's see where that leads to. Okay, so you think the Earth is flat, but again, that ties you down to a belief system. You believe the Earth is flat, which means, you know, what else are you going to believe? You know, they're tying you down to a particular belief system. And once you say the Earth is flat, you've then got to explain why the moon is round. You've then got to explain why the sun is round. You've then got to explain why the planets are round. And it's just, this is not free thinking. You've been tied down to a particular belief system. So I don't think you should believe the earth is flat. I don't think you should believe the earth is round. I don't think you should particularly care whether the earth is flat or round. My own personal belief is that it's round, but that's not the point. You don't want to be tied down to a particular belief system unless you're particularly sure about it. So that is not free thinking. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you again soon. Bye for now.